everybody, it's Michelle up here in Northern Illinois Zone 5, and the temperatures have definitely dropped. It's actually misting a little bit out here, and today we're going to talk about ornamental grasses because in the fall, that is when they look their best. They are spectacular, and so I thought I'd take you around and show you some of the ones that I have growing both at my house and here on the store property. Most of these are full grown. There's a couple of them that are like in this year first growth, or they might be in second year growth, but I think most of them are full grown. I'm going to talk about ones that are ornamental clump forming, for the most part grasses that grow in zone 4 through 8. There are a few that I'm going to give you some cautionary information about. If you decide to grow it, just do your homework as always. Read your tags and make sure that they're going to work for you where you live. I am in zone 5, so I have experience with the ones that I'm growing here in zone 5. There are plenty of other grasses besides what I'm going to talk about, and find one that you love and plant it because they are well worth it. They're so easy to grow. They're drought tolerant. They don't need to be fertilized. You just kind of grow them. That first year you got to water them a little bit more, and then you cut them back once a year, and they come back every year. What's not to love about that? So let's get going and talk about some beautiful grasses for you to add to your landscaping. Let's go. So one of the things you need to know about ornamental grasses before you buy one is, one, are you buying a perennial grass and not an annual grass? So check the tag for the zone, because that's going to determine whether it's perennial or annual. Here in zone 5, we are looking for grasses that can handle up to minus 20 degrees in the winter. And that's really what you're looking for, is can they survive through the winter where you live? The other thing is, are you buying a warm season or a cool season grass, and which one do you want? So a cool season grass grows when it's cool out. Here in zone 5, they actually start to grow in mid-April. Once it's starting to warm up just a little bit, they'll start to put on growth. They grow when it's cool out, just like the name says, cool season grasses. So they're growing when it's cool out, and then they get their plumes on them usually by, sometime in June. And then they kind of go dormant, and they just sit there and they just wave in the breeze, and they're really super nice. And they will start to get like these weedy color on their plumes. Then the temperatures start to go back down the other way in the fall, and they might grow a little bit more, and they'll get weedy colored plumes. They'll just stay there. So they're not anything spectacular in the fall, but they're sturdy, they're reliable, they're dependable, they're easy to grow. Most of them are what I call a medium-sized grass. So they're going to get anywhere from 4 to 6 feet tall and 2 to 3 feet wide. The centers don't die out. They are like calamagratus, those Carl Foresters or the Overdams or the Avalanche. Those would be a few cultivars of the cool season grass, and you see them a lot in parking lots, and you see them there because they are hardy, dependable, and reliable. So they're great, and you're going to get your height right away. Now, you have another category of grasses that are your warm season grasses. Warm season grasses are growing, guess what? When it's warm out. Yeah, they want the ground to warm up before they even start growing. So here in Northern Illinois, they don't even start putting their growth on until like Memorial Day sometimes. And you think like, oh, I lost it, it's dead. But just let the ground warm up. The ground needs to be above 50 degrees for these guys to start putting on some growth. And in your area, that might be sooner and it might be later. I don't know when your ground actually warms up. But they grow during the heat of the summer. And a lot of your bigger grasses are your warm season grasses because they put on their growth during the heat of the summer, and they grow. They get their plumes on them a lot of times, usually the end of August, beginning of September. Some of them are a little bit later than that, and you might not see the plumes on them until more like mid or late September, and you'll see that in a lot of the bigger grasses. And a lot of times though, those bigger grasses or those warm season grasses are the ones that, as the temperature starts cooling down the other way, that's when they really start to put on their beautiful colors, and they'll start to turn those beautiful reds and plums and oranges and yellows, and you'll see those beautiful colors in the grasses. The other thing to remember though is the bigger a grass gets, the rule of thumb is really like however high it gets, an ornamental grass, half of the height is how wide it'll get. So if you're going to grow like a 6-foot grass, it's going to probably get 3 feet wide. If you're going to grow an 8-foot grass, it can get 4 to 5 feet wide. Now, the bigger a grass gets, the bigger your chances are of the center of that grass dying out. So just know that if you choose a big grass, in 4 or 5 or 6 years, you might be digging out the outside edges of it to get that dead center out and replanting that and spreading it, maybe, or gifting it someplace, because that can happen with some of the bigger grasses. as they grow, the clump gets bigger and it keeps growing this way. And as that clump gets bigger and the center isn't getting light and it isn't getting water or nutrients, then it starts to die, and then the clump gets bigger this way. So be careful with bigger grasses. That can happen. For some, they're more prone than others. And I don't know in what area what that is. I just know I've experienced it doing landscaping where we've had to dig out the centers of those. I prefer to grow a small to medium grass, and most of what I'm going to show you outside of one big zebra grass that I have growing, these are all going to be medium to smaller size grasses. So with that, let's go take a look. The grass right here is a piglet. This is a panicum. And what's not to love about a grass called piglet? I love the name. So without its plumes, this gets only about 12 inches high and maybe 8 to 10 inches wide. Once its plumes start to grow on it, it's going to grow another, I don't know, 8 to 12 inches. So altogether, it might get 18 to 24 inches high and wide. It needs full sun, and it grows in zone 5 through 9. It's a warm season grass, which means it doesn't even really start to grow until the ground warms up and the air temperatures warm up. So if here, like in zone 5, we don't even really start to see growth on these until like Memorial Day. Then it grows through the heat of the summer, and then it gets these beautiful plumes on them in the fall. So another one to add to your list is a piglet. Now they also have a little bunny, which is about half the size smaller, and they have a hamlin, which is like half the size bigger. So those three in the series are all ones that I really, really like. This next grass, I'm really loving this one. I put it in this year, so it's the very first time I've grown it. This is the lemon squeeze, and it's also a panicum. This one is by Proven Winners, and what makes it different is that beautiful chartreusey, green, yellow foliage on it, and then those copper tanny plumes. Now this one is still not full grown. When it's all said and done, it might take 3 years for grass to get full grown. This one is just finishing up year 1. I planted it this spring, and it is maybe half of its size. When it's full grown, it'll get 3 feet high and maybe 2 feet wide. That's including the plumes, and it's going to grow in zone 5 through 9 in full sun with good drainage. Now here we have it in the garden, and we have some black-eyed Susans that we transplanted behind it, so we didn't get any flowers on those this year because I cut them all off because I wanted it to focus on being a nice healthy plant. And then we've got those beautiful cleomes, the Senorita Rosalita behind that, and then our limelight hydrangea, and then there is our weeping Norway spruce. So I just love this little guy. Just tucked it right in there. I think he's going to be very happy in this home. This next grass is the Cheyenne Sky Panicum from Proven Winners, and I put it in my cottage garden. This is only 2 months old. Look at how glorious this is. I love this. So when the foliage first emerges in the spring, it's like this blue-green color, and then it starts to get these winey red plumes throughout the whole clump, and then it gets these beautiful, airy plumes that come out on it, and they're like a winey plum too. So this isn't even full grown, and it's a shorter panicum. It's only going to get 3 feet high and about 18 inches wide. It is a warm season grass, and it does grow in zone 4 through 9. Isn't this glorious? I love this grass. I planted 2 of them in here, and I think next year I'll be putting some more of these in the landscape. They are the perfect size to tuck in someplace to give you that movement in your garden. And look at the color. It's gorgeous. I love these. All right, this next patch that I'm in, this is a Calama gratis. I'm actually kneeling down, and this particular cultivar, which is the Overdam, only gets 3 to 4 feet tall. So it's really nice to tuck it in. It's gonna grow in part sun or full sun, but it needs at least 4 hours of sun. Mine don't get any sun until around noon, and then it gets sun from noon until about 7. So that's plenty of sun for a grass to grow. This grass is a cool season grass. That's why it's a little bit smaller. They grow when it's cool out. So I'll start to see growth on these in April, usually like the 2nd or 3rd week in April when it's still cool out. Now don't forget, I'm in zone 5, so where you live it might be a little bit different. Now mine grow while it's cool. They get their plumes on them about mid-June, and then they kind of stop growing in the heat of the summer, and then the plumes will start to age this beautiful weedy color. Now another cultivar that you see a lot out there is called Carl Forster, and the difference between the two is the Carl Forster gets a little bit bigger, not much, maybe 6 or 8 inches bigger. Typically a grass, however high it gets, you can take half that distance, and that is how wide it gets. That's kind of a rule of thumb. There might be some exceptions to the rule, but this one grows 3 to 4 feet high and gets 18 to 24 inches wide. And it's got this beautiful striped foliage on it, and that's why I like it. It tucks in really nice back here, and I just think it's a nice complement in my garden. So in this actual garden that we're in, which is the back garden behind my house, I have 3 different kinds of grasses. Some of them grow in the sun, and then I have one grass that actually grows in the shade, and let's go look at that one next. Oh, and I forgot, zone 4 through 9. This next beautiful grass right here, this is a Hakanakloa, Japanese forest grass. This cultivar is called areola, and it's got this beautiful green and yellow striping on the foliage. Isn't that gorgeous? Now, I've had some people tell me in other videos when I've talked about this grass that it can be invasive, but here in zone 5, it behaves itself. And this one's gonna grow 2 to 3 feet tall and 2 to 2.5 feet wide. It's got this nice arcing habit to it, and it will grow in shade. We love that. It needs at least 4 hours of sun, so that is considered a shade location. I don't know that it would do well in like deep shade. It does need a little bit, you know, like that 4 hours of sun. The other thing that I have found is, you know, all the grasses I've shown you thus far have been at my house, and every one of them has been in clay, and this one is not. I actually mounded up compost here and planted them into the compost. 1, they want really good drainage, and 2, they don't grow very well in clay. I tried it in the front garden and they puked in like a year. So these are actually at the end of their 3rd year, so they're doing really well. So I don't cut mine back. I actually leave them up all winter, and then I have some dieback on them. I will pull the spent foliage off in the spring, and then I don't do anything to them except let them grow. Now, if you have a moist area, these will do well, and if you're going through a drought or you have a really dry area, they will need supplemental water. They need good drainage. And I looked in a lot of places, and it doesn't really say if they're a cool season or a warm season grass. I think they just kind of grow all the time. So just know that they could be invasive, maybe in some particular areas, because they do spread, I think by a rhizome root, but they're supposed to be this really super slow spreader. I've had them before, and I've never ever had them get out of control or go where they're not supposed to. But I've had people comment and say that they grow like weeds in certain circumstances. So just know that about them before you put them in the ground. But I think they're beautiful. This one is called areola, zone 4 through 9. This is a beautiful drift of panicums, north wind grasses. I think this is my favorite grass. They grow in zone 4 through 9. They get 5 to 6 feet tall by 3 to 4 feet wide. They grow in this beautiful vase shape, and they are nice and upright and stiff and erect. And I have plowed snow on top of these things, and they have stood back up after the snow melted. And look at those beautiful plumes that grow right up through the grass, and they're all pretty and airy, and I like the green foliage of this one. It's absolutely gorgeous. So with your ornamental grasses, I basically cut them down 12 to 18 inches from the ground in the spring, or if you want to cut them in the fall, you can do that as well. I like to leave mine up, and in fact, these are part of my Christmas walk, and I run Christmas lights from the bottom all the way to the top, and it like ties them up and makes them look like these little Christmas trees. So there's this big row, because this one comes down here and it swings around the corner. See, they keep going down there. Ooh, my little tree needs some serious pruning. It's got a lot of suckers at the bottom there. All right, but this is the North Wind panicum. I love this grass. All right, so I ran out to the hoop house to show you what a baby one looks like. So this is a 1-year-old grass. It's been in this pot all summer. See, it gets about that big. It takes about 3 years for a grass to get full size. So you're gonna put them in the ground. You plant them as deep as they are in the pot in the ground, and they'll pretty much grow in anything. Then you're gonna water them, and make sure you continue to water them throughout that first year. Then after that, they become drought tolerant. You don't have to fertilize them. In fact, they don't like to be fertilized. It actually pushes this weak growth on them, and they don't like that. They want to, pretty much everyone that I'm talking about today wants to be in full sun. There are a few that grow in the shade, but not very many. So 6+ hours of sun wherever you're going to put them to get them to grow as big as you want them to get according to the tag. Now this is the North Wind panicum, and it grows 6 feet high and 3 feet wide. It's that same grass that we were just standing back there in the back garden with. And so this would be what like a first year one looks like in the fall if you bought it. In the spring it was smaller, and it's obviously grown in its pot throughout the season. Now These can be planted in spring or fall, and they'll both do well. And I don't know, I don't think you can go wrong. Okay, I wanted to give you the full scope of a big grass, because if you're gonna plant a big grass, you need to give a big grass room to grow. This is a zebra grass. Now, when the grass blades first emerge in the spring, they're green, and then as they grow and age, that's when they get their striping on them. As you can see here, this is this one grass, you guys, one grass. Now, this grass is 8 years old. I've never had the center die out on it, and I've been extremely lucky, because for the most part, when you grow a grass this big, that is what happens. The center eventually will die out because they get so thick in there, they compete for light and water and everything, and then the center dies out, and then you end up having to split them. So I'm not a tremendous fan of huge grasses. This is the only one I have. I have one here, and then, oh, turn this way. This one's even bigger. Look at it. That one is one grass, and it's even bigger than the one that I just showed you. And let me go stand next to it, and you can see how tall it is. I'm 5'4". So zebra grass, zone 4 through 9, they're gonna get anywhere from 7 to 9 feet tall, and they're gonna get anywhere from 4 to 6 feet wide. I think this is more than 6 feet. I think that's like 8 feet. And so, well, you know what? If they're really happy where they are, they can certainly do more than the tag says they're gonna do. Sorry about the noise, I'm at the corner. A zebra grass is a miscanthus. That's the, I guess, the Latin name for it. And you got to be careful with miscanthus grasses. They are a fountain grass, and some of them produce seed heads that throw their seeds around and can spread. So you want to make sure when you're putting a miscanthus in, read your tags and make sure you're not putting one in that's going to spread through the seed, not necessarily the clump or the grass itself. This would be the perfect example of a fountain grass or a miscanthus that throws its seed around. Isn't it gorgeous though? Oh my gosh, I love this grass, but I am forever pulling the babies out everywhere. So this is actually 3 grasses, 1, 2, 3. And look at those plumes. Aren't those gorgeous? Ah, but look, get closer, closer. Look at all those seeds in there. See them? Those are gonna make babies everywhere, unless I deadhead them. And some years I get it in time, and some years I don't. But I don't like to cut the plumes off. It looks so gorgeous. This is my entrance, okay? So these are Northwind panicums, and these are the miscanthus redheads. And just to give you perception, the ones that we talked about are way down there. And guess what these are? These are volunteers that grew in. I did not plant those. So be careful if you plant these. These grow in zone 4 through 8, and they're gonna get about 3 feet high and about 2 feet wide. And they're kind of have an arcing habit to them. They're really beautiful, but just know that they can throw those little seeds all over the place. This cute little grass is a little bunny. So it's in the same family as that piglet I showed you. It's just the smallest one that you can get. This is the bunny. It's gonna grow 12 to 18 inches high and maybe 12 to 18 inches wide. It is a warm season grass, so it doesn't get its plumes on it until more towards the end of the season. But isn't it the cutest little thing ever? It's a pensimon. I just love that. See, I got it growing next to some bubblegum, Proven Winners petunias. And then over here, it's got Dragon's Blood sedum on the other side. And then behind it is a Grow Low sumac. So backed up, that's my little vignette. And this guy is growing in hot, blazing afternoon sun. It's in my parking lot island. And so it's growing in zone 5 through 8. They are a little more tender than the piglets or the hamlins. Here are 3 more overdams. Aren't those great? And then next to that, here we go. This is a Graziella. And this one is in its 2nd year, so it's not full size yet, but it probably doubled in size from last year, and it'll probably double again next year. This is also a miscanthus. It's called a maiden grass. So this is the Graziella. Again, it has this nice vase shape to it, and then the plumes come up above the grass, and they kind of look like turkey feet. Aren't they cool? So this one grows in zone 5 through 9. It's gonna get 7 feet tall and 4 feet wide. Absolutely gorgeous. This last one is also out in my parking lot island, and this is a Korean feather reed grass. It's also a Calamagratus, and it gets these champagne pink plumes on them. Aren't those gorgeous? They're going to get 2 to 3 feet tall by 18 inches, up to 24 inches wide. They are a cool season grass, believe it or not. They actually start growing pretty early, but they don't get their plumes on them till later. I love cutting these plumes and putting them in ornamental flower arrangements or my winter pots. They are super hardy and they are easy to grow. They look great in like clumps like this. This is 3 different grasses. They are full grown and I just love this grass. It will take some light shade too. So it's the only grass on my list that will take light shade. These are my calamagratis that are growing in the shade. And as you can see, they're nowhere near as big as the ones in the sun, but I do have growth and I do have plumes. And here's my other 2. Okay guys, I think that's a wrap for ornamental grasses. They are absolutely fabulous in the fall. I love to grow them. I love the movement that they give me in my garden. I love all the different shapes and different colors that they come in, and they're so easy to grow. The biggest advice I can give you is read your tag. Make sure that you're buying a perennial one and not an annual one for where you live. Also, make sure that you're buying one that doesn't spread on the ground through rhizomes. You want a clump forming grass, and it should say that right on the tag for you. And if you do a little bit of homework, usually you can go to your extension office and look up whether or not they spread by seed. Some of them will say that on the tag, but not all of them do. So I would do a little homework before you pick the one that you love to put in the garden. I like all of the ones that I am growing here, and the only ones that I would throw caution with would be that redhead miscanthus that I showed you, and also that Haconocloa grass, because in some areas they both can go all over the place, so be careful with that. I am Michelle. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for our next episode. We'll be redoing the porch, and then we're going to start the revamp of the garden up front, cutting things back and kind of changing up that hot mess that I got going on in there. So you guys keep on gardening. Have a great day. We'll see you in the next video. Bye everybody.